of two computational methods. Okay, so outlier ID number 1. And this starts with an if. Oh, make sure you get L2 on your graph. You've got L1, 1. Make sure you go L1, L2. You're getting that horizontal graph I was telling you about.
So I have to put plots on both?
No. Put plot 1, but pick L1 and then frequency L2. Make sure it's looking at your frequencies as well. This one starts with a conditional. If, big if. If you think your data is bell-shaped. If it passes that test, sounds like we're saying yes it is, then all you gotta do is construct 2 standard deviations. Anything outside of that would be considered unusual. If your data is bell-shaped, arrow, arrow, any data outside of 2 standard deviations is atypical. What percentage of data is atypical then? 5%. Say it nice and loud. 5%. 5%. Right? If it was outside of 1 standard deviation, 32%. Or 1/3. A third, you said, right? I got a third. Yes, that's 1 standard deviation. Speaking of which, just off topic a little bit, one of the more commonly missed questions on the exam was 95% of the time my chickens lay between blah and blah eggs. There's 2 standard deviations, which I think I mentioned that right before that, but people forgot to multiply by 2. So they went from 2 to 4 instead of 1 to 5. So real quick, check on that. If you got that one wrong, I think you guys just blew through it and you knew what you were doing. I think you just missed the cue of 95% should be within 2 standard deviations. And you knew the standard deviation is 1, but you have to multiply that by 2 to go out twice. We're going to do it right here to practice it. Right? It wasn't like a majority missed that one, but a sizable chunk. I'd say 1 in 3. I'm like, that's kind of weird. So whatever, it's all good. So let's calculate this range. Yes? Let's calculate this range. All right, so I'm going to go back to my graph. We already know what the average was, I think. I think you guys said I was 6 feet tall, yes? Yeah. Yes, you said I was 6 feet tall. We're going to call that 72 inches. Your ish. I'm going to call my standard deviation 1.5 inches. Is okay with you guys. So for my height stats, you said I was 72 inches tall with a standard deviation of about 1.5 inches. So in order to figure out if the 67 was, say, for example, too small, we've got to form a range of values around that 72. It goes back to Mon's definition of distance. It's perfect. It is a definition of distance. This is one way of defining it. The average distance from the average. Yes. So let's take these 2 values and create just that. Let's do the average plus or minus 2 of those and see what range that gives us. That would be 72 inches plus or minus 3 inches, yes? The minus part gives us a low ball, the plus part gives us a high ball, and everything in between we consider the normal or typical data points. Anything outside of that would be unusual. Cool enough? Please, go.
So do we count 69 and...
Good question. Hold that thought. Give me 30 seconds, Ronnie, if you don't mind. Let's do the math first, then argue about whether we should or not. Good question, Pat. Go.
So it's 72 inches plus or minus 3.
Yes.
Multiplied by 2, so it's not 1.5 on each side of 72. It's 3 on the other.
It's 1.5 twice on each side.
Okay.
1.5. This goes back to what Veronica said. If you go out 1.5 on each side, how much data are you going to trap on average?
1 standard deviation.
1 standard deviation. So percentage-wise or fraction-wise, about 2/3. 1/3 will be outside of that. Now, Pat, a better question is, why isn't that considered typical? Well, the definition that's been handed down to us in the journals and the research articles says 95% is the typical middle. I'm not saying it's correct, YouTube world. I'm saying it's what you see in journals. So you have to go out 2 to pick that up in bell-shaped.
Got it.
Does that make sense? If you go out 3, you pick up even more. If you go out 4, you pick up even more. 5, you pick up even more. But 2 is the industry standard, if you will. I mean, that's just what we see. P-value of 5% implies 95% tracked. Unfortunately, it's the best answer I got because we see it all the time. Fair? Is everybody buying that? Why the times 2? Good? Yes? Maybe? Excellent. So, and I think Veronica already argued the math for us. That goes 69 inches up to 75 inches. 69 up to 75. Now what I'd like to do is revisit our graph with this. I want to revisit our graph. Ask me that question. Sounds like a good question brewing back here. Yeah.